Oh, I want the hero's name with McAlpine and Castaigne, Fitzpatrick, Murphy, Action, the Whitby gang. I've been on and off the road, on my way to draw the dole, when there's nothing else to do for Johnny Lang. I used to think that God made the mixer picking hot, so Paddy might get knocked on the ground. I've heard that anger's big and tough, tell me tear it up like a rock, when you're tearing up and something ain't been down.
Woo! Good stuff, Sean. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Construction Cast again. We've got a colossus of a man on the show today. Managing Director of Depot Interiors, ex-commercial director of Carillion, Alvertame, Carillion, Middle East. Rob the Davies, how you doing?
Very good, very good. Yep.
Good stuff. So how do you know Sean and myself, Rob? Got to give it a bit of detail around it.
Yeah, Sean I've known since 2002, 2001, 2000 even. I can't hear Sean.
Sean's done his mic, so all the background noise goes off it. Now we can't hear him. Oh, it's always Sean. It's always Sean.
And I expected Sean would be the one with the experience.
At least he's got his background up this time, which is good. So, Sean, your mic's not working. Change your audio settings back to automatic, I'd suggest. So forget about Sean, let him sort that out.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, Sean. So I think it was probably 2000. I was in Denmark. And I think I interviewed Sean for a job on the Metro Construction Consortium, which was a joint venture between a number of large construction firms, which included Tarmac, Carillion. Yeah, I think it was Tarmac, and it went into Carillion while we were there. And then I don't remember whether I did, but I think I phoned him up and asked him to come out to Egypt as well.
More than once.
Yeah, so yeah, I did actually. But yeah, Sean was quite famous in Denmark. He had one night in quite a big Irish bar there, and it was flagged on the Metro internal email as Sean in tights. He was doing a bit of a gig. I forget your mate's name, but he was on a fiddle or a violin.
I think it was probably Eamon Gooch in those days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Dubliner.
Yeah.
It was always a bit of a trip out before Christmas. I must admit that. Yeah, the week before Christmas was always a bit messy in Copenhagen. Yeah, that's worth saying. I must admit, I don't know if you remember this, Rob, but yeah, he's interviewed me. Yeah. I think you said to Andy West at the time, if he's got long hair and an earring, he's not.
He's out.
Yeah. Little did we know, a couple of years later we would be struggling for thatch at all on top of the head. Yeah. But the other one I remember as well, it was we did the interview. Of course, I got the job. Like, I mean, who else were they going to employ? Got into the job. Was it the first day? Met Andy West and yourself. Brought me down to the office where you were. I think we were sharing an office at the time. And it was late 90s. Of course, by that stage, yes, computers, of course, were everywhere, yeah. But they hadn't asked me anything about computer skills when they did the interview. And I always remember walking into the room and said, "Oh, a TV all for myself." And the look that Andy and Rob got.
Yeah, it was a good job you had me to teach you all about computing.
Oh yeah. Still
can't he's done really well.
Obviously, you know. Yeah.
But yeah, and then it was, I think, Caio that I met you.
That's right. Yeah.
Wasn't it?
That's right. Debauchery. We don't have to go into any stories about anything. That's just good enough to say Cairo.
God, that was a different place to work.
Yeah, I alluded to.
I've gone full circle again, Rob. Yeah, basically back doing a metro again, an underground.
Oh, yeah. You? Wow.
Yeah, we're doing Brisbane Cross River Rail. So it's Brisbane's in name, similar to London's Cross River Rail, not quite as big.
Okay.
But,
Have you met a guy called Simon Thomas?
Don't forget, this isn't a catch-up. This is being recorded.
All right,
just to remind you, you can follow and ignore Rob as much as you want.
I'll ping you his contact details afterwards. He's a good guy. He's quite senior there. I know maybe he was on the light trail or something. Anyway, back to Cairo.
Well, sorry, back to Cairo. Yeah,
back to the podcast. No, the I think Cairo for me was I think for everyone, and we mentioned it on the Aiden show. It was that long. My memory of you, Rob, is just at the bar where you were ordering pint of wine, and the buy one get one, so you get another pint thereafter. It was just
it was a white wine spritzer.
Of course it was. Yeah.
Go easy on the spritzer, Mohammed. Yeah.
It was wine with a soda top.
Dash off.
I remember getting up one morning, just check and see what cash I'd left. I had a bill from the Dusset, and there was 6 bottles of white wine on it. And the only other person I could remember that was drinking white wine was Chris Lovell's wife, and she's not a big drinker. But yeah.
Stuff.
And there's probably the buy one get one free as well. So it was probably 12 bottles.
That was.
But the white wine now was so good.
Obelisk, was it Obelisk or the
Obelisk or something? Yeah, there was only 2 types you could get, weren't there? And they were both as bad as each other.
Chateau de Migraine.
Right, Rob, why did you get into construction?
I mean, I never intended to get into construction, so I left school and I was doing a course, applied biology course.
Really?
Yeah. I finished the first year. Yeah, I finished the first year. Had to go in prior to, I got the results and told to go in to see the head of year or whatever it is in college. And he said, you're going to have to resit the first year. I'm thinking, strange, because I passed it. He said, yeah, you passed it, but your attendance is below 50%. And we just can't let you go on that basis. We're not letting you go into the second year. So I thought, oh, bollocks to that. And my father at the time, he had his own business, but he used to work in the local college. I can't remember what course he was doing. He's a painter and decorator. So he was doing sitting gills or something with the college. And I just ended up going to building studies, an OND in building studies. And I don't know why I went from there to do a degree in quantity surveying. I don't remember any sort of thought about it. It was just someone probably mentioned, no, I know what it was. A really good friend of mine in school, his grandfather was a director of a really big QS firm in Swansea, and I worked there for the summer. And I didn't really think about it then. I just went in and found a course in quantity surveying because I've just done 6 weeks over the summer, so it was a good idea. And that's how I got into doing a degree in quantity surveying, and then I was stuck in construction because that's it. I mean, today, well, I don't know, you do a vocational degree and that's what you've got. So you either retrain. But yeah, I mean, I come out of college and it was quite tough because it was 89. So I went straight into that first crash. So I did a thick sandwich. So I did a year out with a company called Fairclough that then became AMEG. Came out, everyone was taking sponsorship. Everyone was refusing sponsorship because salaries were going up at such a rate. I needed the cash in my final year, so I took the sponsorship. I went straight into a job, and literally about 90% of my year was struggling to get work because they'd just gone through the sort of 89 crash. But yeah, it was a tough time coming out of uni. But yeah, that was my journey into construction.
Interesting.
And now you've come full circle as a painter and decorator.
I was going to say, I thought I'd leave that one to you, Sean.
Now with a fit-out company, and 90% of what we do is painting.
Yeah, there you go.
But you know how things change. So when I used to, my father had a painting and decorating company, so most summers and holidays, I'd be dragged into work with him. I mean, he had sort of 30 guys working with him, and I had to do all of the shitty little jobs that nobody wanted to do, painting skirtings. And it was undercoat and gloss. Of course, that's old school now. Nobody uses it. Things have moved on so quickly, even with things like painting. But yeah, so my father's sort of in construction, like you said, full circle, and I'm painting and decorator.
Yeah, brilliant. That's on the visa for Dubai, is it?
Yeah.
So did you work for Nuttall for a while as well at one point?
Yeah.
Then before going to Copenhagen?
Nuttall.
So what brought you to Carillion and then to Copenhagen?
I worked with Nuttall's for a while, and I was working with their major contracts, and then Tom was born, and the major contracts, you were never at home, and South Wales is the middle of nowhere. So whatever job they had, I mean, I joined them first of all for a project in Morristown, which is 12 miles away, and then I was in wing water treatment work, which is in East Anglia. It was the opposite end of the country, and I did that for years. Then up to North Wales, the family moved up there, and it just became painful. So I left them and joined. I was trying to find an overseas posting. I just wanted to go overseas. I left them, joined AMEC. I was with AMEC and I had a sort of relationship with AMEC anyway, and I was with them for about 6 months. But doing the transition from Nuttall's to AMEC, I'd been looking for overseas jobs, and a friend of the guy that I was working with Nuttall's just phoned me up and he said, we got a job, we got a staff for you in Copenhagen, which is how I ended up there. Jumped to
yeah, so you just went straight over that time. Yeah, you jumped straight to Carillion, or I suppose Tarmac at that time.
It was Tarmac.
I think it just changed. Yeah, I think it just changed from Tarmac to Carillion while we were over there at some point.
I don't remember what year, but yeah.
So was that part of your chat up line with your missus? I used to work in sewage works in East Anglia, and she's like, "Oh, I live near there."
Because she's from East Anglia.
Well, is that near my house? Who's the most memorable person that you've worked in construction with, and why? There's a few characters, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a few of them. I mean, the one that sort of jumps to mind is probably Dave Newell. When I was in Oman, I mean, it was moving to the Middle East, and your first few months in the Middle East is a bit of an eye opener, I think. It's like stepping back 10 years in terms of construction practice and how things work. And he was just one of those guys, just out on site all the time, knowledgeable. I mean, a lot of people in the Middle East are shouters, and Dave Newell could shout when he needed to, but he was just admired by the Indian sort of staff and labour. Yeah. Whenever there was sort of a festival on, he'd be sort of dragged out of the office. It wouldn't be just, Dave pushing himself in, he'd be dragged out of the office. So yeah, probably Dave Newell, and someone I learned a huge amount from Dave about construction, because I was always in civil engineering. And the first project I did overseas was the Barajissa Resort. And probably equally, maybe Dick Benson.
Dickie Benson.
In terms of understanding the commercial sort of job as a whole, and the implications of what you do in one variation and how it affects maybe something else. So yeah, those two, I'd struggle to choose between the two of them, but knee-jerk reaction would probably be Dave Newell. Special guy.
I think
so not us, not Sean and myself.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, where did we come in? I was going to give Rob a touch, but no, it's gone straight.
Don't bother. Don't bother.
You guys are there at 3 and 7.
Which one's 3? What? 3 and 7?
Sean, of course, because I've taught him everything he knew.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm still learning. I haven't learned anything since I left with Rob. Yeah, been trying to get him out. Been trying to get you out here for years, Rob. Now into Australia. Yeah.
He's a big MD now, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Huge.
So what's the most dangerous project you've been involved with, if any? Would you say?
It's always going to be one of the civil engineering projects. I mean, shaft sinking. I was looking after the shaft sinking and tunneling in Copenhagen. That comes with it. But in terms of the most dangerous, but probably because of an event, was the Bringlass relief scheme. So the Bringlass tunnels, if you've ever driven into Wales past Newport, you've got those 2 tunnels. I was working with Amy's, and we were doing the relief scheme around it. And we had to construct a cofferdam in the river. And Newport is famous and infamous for having an absolutely massive tidal movement. I might be talking out my arse here, but I think it's something like 14 meters.
I think you're right, but being from England, I'd say Bristol, but I get where you're coming from.
It's next door, isn't it? I think
Oh, I
Wales
thought you meant to
probably
talk about
have
his
it.
arse bit.
Wales
I
are
thought you
probably
meant he was- Yeah, he was right. He was talking
It's on a
about his
hill as
arse.
well, so it's on a hill, so it's bound to have a bigger movement.
Sure.
But so we made these cofferdams were constructed in the middle of the river, and there was such a head of water that once the tide got up to a certain level, they had to switch the pumps off so it would equalize. On one evening, they had a change of shift, and it had been overlooked, and they got such a hydrostatic pressure that the whole cofferdam collapsed. And it threw a spacer from one of the whaling beams straight up into the air, and it landed on the M4. But it just happened that there was a pickup truck driving past, and it landed behind the cab on the pickup truck and literally pinned the middle of the cab, or the middle of the bed, onto the floor of the. I mean, this thing was probably a meter high, a meter wide, and I don't know, 300 or 400 mil thick. So you can imagine the weight of it. Fired it up in the air, landed on this. It was a big issue. Excavator still at the bottom of the dam, and I think in terms of danger, you've always got to look at, I think, at civil engineering.
Well, I'm surprised you weren't thinking about like any civil unrest that you've had in the Middle East, but that civil engineering's on par with it, sure.
I was going to go further there. You mentioned Copenhagen at the start, and certainly some of the most dangerous situations I've been in is going into subcontractor meetings with you. You know, where they're actually they were out to get us. You know, they were sort of afraid. I was checking under the car. I was leaving work in the evenings. You know, that type of way. Yeah,
I've heard very similar from Steve Barry a couple of weeks ago in an Ibiza trip about how aggressive Rob is in those subcontractor meetings.
Yeah, but I think, you know, that's bringing on to, I mean, that's how the industry's changed, I think, a fair bit as well. I mean, or maybe we've just all got a bit older. I don't know. I mean, if you look at what we used to do back then, how we used to get on with our subbies and make sure they performed, as to what we actually do now. And what I see is the younger people coming into the industry, particularly here in Australia, it just doesn't go. Yeah, so you still get these old school guys, subbies, who will come on and call everybody all the names of the day, as I suppose you're still getting a lot of UK sites and stuff as well. But the young guys don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah,
they have no idea how to deal with it. They have no idea. Yeah, what do I say? Oh, he's talking to me the wrong way. Maybe I should write him a letter. Well, they don't even think of writing a letter anymore. It's probably an email or a WhatsApp or something, you know. But yeah, I think that's one of the challenges for the industry at the moment. It's being more encompassing, of course, as we always say. But
do you know my eye opener in terms of, you know, you just said about being aggressive. I never considered myself as being I knew I wasn't a pushover, but I never considered myself as being aggressive until remember Moret?
Yes.
We were talking about we'd had a meeting, and came out of the meeting, we're sitting down talking about it. She said, the one thing I'm really happy about is that I work for Carillion, because she said I would absolutely be petrified sitting opposite you in a meeting. And I looked at her and I was quite taken aback. I said, why, what do you mean? Is my breath bad or something? And she said, you're just bloody scary. She said, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was the resident engineer for the Cairo Festival City.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I was taken aback, and I've sort of since then, I think, tried to sort of wind in how I speak to people, and yeah. Anyway.
Is that maturity? That's maturity as well. That's another one of the Dick Benson traits that I think is passed on to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, keep your powder dry.
Yeah, keep your powder dry. Wait until the end. Let's see what happens. No point in getting all guns blazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give yourself
The
room to
old
maneuver.
cliches. Yeah. Oh yeah, we have to get him on. We have to get Dick on.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get through a
he's on
couple
the
of those
list.
cliches, and we'll put a list. We'll have to put a list down the side, right? And every time he says one, we'll tick the box.
And I tell you what, all of the accents he does as well. I mean, that's one thing.
You're going to ask him to do. We won't
whatever
mention
accent,
names.
yeah, whatever accent you do, it's Italian.
Brilliant. So, what's the most exciting, challenging place you've worked, and why?
Oh, it's got to be Egypt. I mean, you mentioned the Arab uprising and or the Arab Spring, and being left sort of behind in Egypt, in Cairo. Someone's got to stay behind. And if you remember, Martin was on one of his trips to Dubai, I think. So they said, "Well, Rob, you're going to have to stay behind." I can't remember. Jim stayed behind with us. They said, "Oh, keep someone behind." Jim was going to stay, and I was thinking, "Oh, not Jim. I can't be staying in the house with Jim." And I make that as worst. He said, "Well, I'll stay as well."
The odd couple stayed with you.
Do you know the first night? I remember the first night clear. I mean, it was noisy. It was gunfire. It was just, and we lived in Katamea Heights, and everyone had this. Everyone had their security out, and there was a lot of sort of the politicians and things used to live there as well. So they had all of the sort of army trucks and things outside. All of the security, the personal security. Sort of employees were sat outside the houses.
Sorry, Sean, did we have that where we lived? Because I can't remember all the security. I remember the armed trucks.
No, you lightweights were put on the plane. Remember, that's all I heard was about how you managed to smuggle a load of booze onto the plane and had a good old session on the way back.
But I'm talking about in general, where we lived during the whole time.
No, there was no
security.
No, there was the gatekeeper.
The
security.
Yeah. So in terms of challenging, and Egypt just generally is challenging. It's the type of place you can really enjoy for 2 years, and after that, I think, well, I found it just starts to wear on you. But really challenging.
I know you can never forgive me for leaving you, but yeah, it wore on me a bit too. And it was a choice between sunny Australia, where everything's nice and nanny state, or stay here in Egypt. It was a tough choice at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. Can imagine. I mean, I did 4.5 years in Egypt.
That's a long time.
But in saying that, it was exciting, challenging place. But as on the list of favorite projects, where would it end up?
Yeah, pretty much up there. Do you know, Egypt's a tough place, but because it's a tough place, I think everyone sort of pulls together there, and then everyone was sort of living close to the project. There weren't many bars there, so there was a really good social life.
It was a good crack, wasn't it? It was.
And the project was making money, and that always helps.
Yeah.
It had a great bunch of people and great social life. Everyone a lot of people got into golf and things there, and there were, as I said, 1 or 2 bars. So you could walk into one of those 2 bars, and you'd have someone. On most Friday evenings, it was straight from work into the bar, and there'd be far too many people there, and it was dangerous then as well. I mean, once you pass sort of 8 people, and invariably gets into a round, it's going to be 8 drinks before you start. So Katamea Golf Club, and there was the Dusit, wasn't it?
Dusit,
the Dusit. And what was the other one?
JW Marriott.
One of the Marriott sometimes, and then there was
the Ace Club down in Mard.
I was going to say it was the BCA Ace Club, or BCA.
BCA,
British Carrow Association.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah. And even that us Irish in there too, which was nice, really nice of them.
Yeah, British and Irish Lions, drinking together. It's good.
It was always good for a good thing. So,
and the rest of the countries I've worked in on projects. I mean, Copenhagen is just a metropolitan city. It's easy. Dubai is easy. Oman a little bit different, but easy. Can get milk from the supermarket whenever you went, or fresh milk from the supermarket whenever you went.
There's water usually coming out of a tap.
Yeah, absolutely. Get up in the morning, switch a shower on, there's nothing. This always happens in the summer because they divert all of the water to the farms. Yeah.
Yes.
I must admit, I enjoyed the Cairo project as well. And you're right. I think when projects are challenging and places are challenging, like there always seems to be a better spirit around the job, because that's the other thing. You come to the big cities, you come to the big jobs. I think you're experiencing it back in the UK now as well, Steve. You don't have the same work-life culture, yeah. And for me coming here in Australia, it's the same as well. You don't have the same people around. You haven't all got the same interests. Big joint ventures, big projects. It's very much, yeah, work is work and your life is your life again.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was a way of life.
Yeah. And Copenhagen, that was a great project. But again,
project.
I mean, it was a disaster commercially. But wow, what a great project!
I think we did okay. I think we did okay in the end up. Yeah.
The MEP,
there.
I was looking after, ultimately made. Well, we didn't make a fortune, but we did fine.
I did everything, and Rob took the glory. This is ongoing for 20 years. This one,
as well.
This is 20 years. We're talking about this one now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember how I did everything in Copenhagen, Rob, and you took all the glory?
You just left too early, Sean. There was nobody else to take the glory.
Is that while he was watching his TV, Rob?
Okay.
He's sitting there watching his TV on his desk.
Yeah.
So what challenges do you think the industry is facing at the minute? And that could be like Middle East or in general.
I only talk about the Middle East because that's the only thing I can talk about with any sort of knowledge, really. At the moment in the Middle East, it's just being killed by liquidity. Middle East is the Middle East. Everything goes out. They start the construction process way too early. Design isn't complete. I think back. It's such a long time since I've been in the UK. Anyway, I mean, I've been overseas 20 odd years. But you think back to the UK, and I remember thinking, God, you're just getting bogged down in paperwork. Everything had a huge amount of paperwork behind it. I came out to the Middle East and there's a sort of a breath of fresh air. And Oman was fine, projects, had the design, sort of got on with it, came to Dubai. Well, then went to Egypt, bit of an issue there with design, but we expected it there. Came to Dubai and I just thought, this is going to be pretty easy, I would have thought. But everything went out to tender too early. And, some of the big developers, they're known for it now, and you end up doing most of the design yourself. But in terms of the short term, it's just liquidity, getting paid, getting cash. The banks are shying away from construction. Contractors are struggling to sort of cover their costs, and then the supply chain suffer with them. Yeah. Every project you go on is a problem with. You've got disputes, you've got delays because you went out to tender too early, or you started construction too early. You haven't got the full design, that causes delays, and it's just one of those. I don't know. I'm shocked.
Yeah. So, what's the solution for the Middle East? I mean, do you think they're going to get, or Dubai or anywhere else? Are they going to go down some kind of security of payments type act at any stage? Do you think, or that's totally not in keeping with Sharia law, or that's not going to happen?
I don't know. I mean, everyone's entrenched in what they do in Dubai now. It's just that same old, every project, the client, it's all about cost, guys, no variations. And we got one or two projects that it's really well sort of managed, causes a bit of delay, but their position is, unless you've got confirmation from us on the cost of a variation, you don't change. And it's caused a little bit of delay because it takes a while for the client to come back and say yes or no. Some of them you have to change, but that's quite well managed. Most of the projects though are just get on with it, submit your variations on time, never get a response, and then you push in and push in and push in and get a response to try and get that part of it, that risk out of the way. It doesn't work because unless the sort of project, the client's professional team have been instructed to get those very well. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they've been instructed not to do anything with them. Let's wait until completion of the project, and we've got a bit more of a lever to, they'll want the cash, and we can use that as a lever to get a discount. And that they're just entrenched in that at the moment. And until, I don't know what's going to change. Maybe more contractors disappearing. I mean, there's a lot of contractors disappeared in Dubai. I won't mention names, but I could probably mention 3 that have gone into just disappeared, and probably another.
There's a lot of them that's public as well. The big guys, it's all public. It's all the Global Construction Review, the likes of the BAM, the likes of the Latents Group, Al Habtours. They're all pulling out.
Yeah.
You're all pulling out, and you're right. It's because of that liquidity. To me, it seems like, again, it's 20 years behind anything else as well. Everywhere else has moved on as to how we manage contracts, how we pay the subbies, because they know it's not sustainable. But seems to have still carrying on that 20 years ago, 30 years ago type approach that screw the builder, they're making too much money. Yeah. Was there any, just out of that, I mean, when we see, particularly here in Australia, there was likes of Greensills, who of course have gone to the wall, and always have big impact as well in the UK, where they were doing all of this invoice discounting. Was there anything like that in Dubai, or any influence from Greensills in Dubai? No.
No, not that I've seen. No, but
just going back onto that, with regards to the risk and how the client side are sort of managing the variations, do you think there's a problem with the contract forms? Over here, we're trying to push NEC for more, and it's
just going back to one of your earlier questions, who's sort of had a big impact in someone you look up to, with Dave Newell. The one thing he always used to say is contracting is really easy, and it is. All of the contracts have got the right terms in terms of so that you can secure what you're owed. But he used to say contracting is really easy. It's people that make it difficult. And you've got the contract forms that work. This is what you do if there's a variation. This is how you value a variation. But if you've got someone there saying, well, yeah, I know I changed the tender drawing, but you've got that sort of risk. You should have known that as a professional contractor. You're thinking, hang on, I got a contract. I tendered in those drawings. You're doing the design, not me. And it's just, I mean, that's so true. Contracting's really easy, and it is really easy. It's just people that make it difficult. So you can have the best contract, the most fair contract in the world, with reciprocal terms either way. But if you've got someone making it difficult and with an intention of not paying you, not valuing the works, not looking at variations, not being fair and reasonable, then it's going to be a disaster. And that's where the Middle East is at the moment.
That's a really good nugget of information, I think, for any of the kids that are going to be watching this at a university, maybe our university in the future. It's a really, really good bit of information. Sean, do you know you're on mute?
Yeah, it did. The dog was barking.
Oh, right.
The problem. It was coming through the studio walls here.
We're going to sort of start to wrap up now, Rob, but I'm just going to ask a couple of not personal, but how leadership style questions. How do you lead or manage your team?
Because
we heard about Marek thinking you had a very aggressive style, but I don't think
I do at times. As a team, you probably don't. I probably don't manage them as a team per se. You manage each person, and say manage very loosely. And I'll be quite different from one person to the next, depending on how I think I should be with them. The one thing I always push is just getting people to take on the responsibility, give them, make sure they understand that they can make decisions. And I say it so often, you're better off making a bad decision than no decision. And I can't remember who was saying
that's an interesting one, Rob. If I can just cut you in there, make a decision. I've seen a lot of management styles where, and particularly in the world today, again, we come down these routes of whether it's an Oracle type system or an SAP type system or whatever, where everything has to go through a process now and get a box ticked to get an invoice approved. It used to be you're bogged down in paperwork. To me, these days, you're bogged down in clicking a box on the screen to approve an invoice for $5,000 that should have been at the site level done. And to me, the complete opposite, I think, is the challenge. You're right, for the young guys coming through today and girls, because they're not given the responsibility, and projects are getting bigger and more complicated. And I don't think they're given the responsibility to actually make a decision. They're not allowed to make decisions anymore.
Empowerment, and that's the one huge advantage of coming to the Middle East, and it was always, you'd be exposed, you'd be looking after projects that you'd never. It would take you decades to get to that position in the UK. There's just so many huge projects that are going on. Some of them very complex, some of them not so complex, but still in terms of numbers, it's big numbers. And you get onto a project here, and we're doing one project in Saudi at the moment. It's a very short project. We've got a peak labour force, and it's only 4 months. 900 people.
Wow.
And you won't have not that that's a measure of the size of a project, but you don't have that sort of project in the UK. Everything is lean because labour so expensive there. And but yeah, it's just about the best way. Someone said something really great to me yesterday, and I was quite taken aback with it. He said, I measure my management, the success of my management in that I would hope in a year that I could move away from the business and go and do something else. And they just get on with it because everyone's, empowered, everyone knows what they're doing. And the project the company is running perfectly because I've departed all of the information I can. And that's the measure of my success. I can just walk away after the year and everything will go on. Yeah. And it's all right, but that comes down to empowerment. If you don't
doing yourself out of a job, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
The best way forward.
But there's always going to be two guys like you that need help.
I'll send you a text, Rob, when I need some help. Rob,
we're making the jokes here, Rob. We're making the jokes.
Yeah. You've never been the funny one. Rob, look, thanks a lot for that. I know you're busy. Well, busy. He's going out for brunch. He's going to get pissed. That's what he's told us to start earlier so he could go out and get pissed. And you think he's looking good. It's because he's going out brunching. That's why.
I always look good.
Yeah. That's that you've dressed up, have you?
That's dressing up, yeah.
I've got a polo shirt on.
Yeah.
As good as it gets.
I'm in lockdown. So I've polo shirted today as well. Yeah. No cufflinks while working from home. That's the rule.
In fact, do you know what? That's the one thing I've done with DEPA. Said, you don't need to wear suits to work. You don't need to wear ties to work. Work's difficult enough without being uncomfortable. If you go and see a client,
did you tell everyone to wear white shirts then?
I didn't know. Kevin Lewis did before me.
White shirts and suede shoes. You must.
Indeed.
Oh, good stuff. Well, thanks a lot, Rob.
Sounds good.
Pleasure.
Don't forget, guys, click and subscribe down here.
Yes.
Sean, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Rob. Always good to talk to you. A while since we've talked, so yeah, good to see you again.
You too.
Cheers.
Good to see you both. Take care.
See you guys.
Cheers.
Thanks. Sign up.
Done.
And just stay on there for a bit, Rob, because I have to stop recording now.
Well, I stop recording.